Yesterday, Karoline Leavitt, I don't think actually had a scheduled press briefing, but they decided to call one as Chris Van Hollen was landing in El Salvador because they were kind of sick and tired of the lies that were put out there. They were kind of sick and tired about one side of this story being ignored. You see, Chris Van Hollen is the senator from Maryland, and he made a big deal and continues to make a big deal about his grandstanding on behalf of a Salvadoran who was in his state illegally. He calls him a Maryland man, and he's showing that he's going to go to the Met and do whatever he can to protect that man. But then, less than an hour away from where Chris Van Hollen lives in Maryland, there was a young woman who was jogging on a bike trail about a year ago. Her name was Rachel Morin. She was abducted, she was sexually abused, she was raped, and she was murdered by a guy who remarkably falls into the exact same category as the Maryland man that Chris Van Hollen is so upset about. He was from El Salvador. He was led in this country illegally. He was a member of the MS-13 gang, and he was just convicted of that murder. And at no point since that crime took place, through the trial, through the conviction this week, did Senator Chris Van Hollen, the champion of Maryland men, the champion of all Marylanders, and truth, justice, and the American way, never did Chris Van Hollen ever bother to pick up the phone to call the family of that young woman who was murdered. It's quite a narrative, actually, if anyone in the media is interested in telling it. And since they weren't, Karoline Leavitt at the White House, she decided to put the story right in front of their face and shame them into covering it. By now, you know that the mother of Rachel Morin, that Maryland woman who was raped and murdered, Patty Moran, she stood at the podium and told her story to those reporters. It was compelling. It was amazing. I know you've already seen that. What I want you to see is what happened as she was leaving the room, impromptu, off microphone. She had one thing to say to those reporters. Take a look.
Thank you. And I just want to say that as a mother and as an American citizen, the president and our entire team, and I hope people in this room are grateful for your willingness to come here and your request to share your daughter's story. And I think the country hears you loud and clear. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Patty or for me? No?
I have a question.
No? Anybody? Okay. We'll see you all later. The president will be at his dinner later this evening. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Ms. Morin.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry for your
loss.
Thank you. Please tell the truth. Exactly. Tell the truth.
Yeah.
Tell how violent it really is. This is about protecting our children. It's more than just politics or votes or just anything. It's about national security, protecting Americans, protecting our children. Thank you. And thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. Oh, I need a good cry.
Two things, two very noteworthy things there. The first is, after she told her story, Karoline Leavitt said, "Any questions?" And the reporters had no questions. They didn't want to know anything more. They didn't want to ask anything more. They didn't want to expand on what they had already just heard. There was nothing. They had nothing to say. And then you heard her turn around and say to the reporters, because a few of them said, "We're sorry for your loss. Thank you for being here. Sorry for your loss." She turned around and said, "Please tell the truth." That's what this grieving mother said to these reporters in Washington, D.C. and the White House. Please tell the truth. This isn't about politics. This is about protecting our children. Please tell the truth. So now I would love to show you all of the news packages on the broadcast networks last night and on cable news about the story of Rachel Morin and about her grieving mother and about what happened at the White House yesterday and about what happened to Rachel, a mother of five children who are now being raised without a mother because of the violence that was inflicted upon her due to the last administration's border security policies. I would love to show you all of those packages, all of the snazzy news coverage, the videos, the panel discussions, the in-depth analysis. But I can't show you that. You know why? Because they ignored it. Not Fox News. This morning on Fox and Friends, they covered it, and they covered it in context, in the way you should expect an actual grown-up news agency to cover this story.
So while the senator focuses on issues overseas, what about his own state? In 2022, Maryland had about 300,000 illegal immigrants, and that's 5% of the state's population. Maryland is just one of 6 states, as you can see, that gained unauthorized immigrants between 2019 and 2022. Those folks were there illegally. And according to the White House, these are just some of who have been arrested or convicted of crime. As you can see, it's a long list of people.
It is. It's much longer than that giant screen on the Fox and Friends set would ever be able to show. Then they brought in the grieving mother, Patty Moran. Again, the one network, the one television show that bothered to follow up on this story.
I shared those details yesterday because I wanted people to understand and to know and to see the truth. That, yes, maybe some of these immigrants that are coming in really are seeking a better life. But there is also a majority amongst them that are criminals from other countries that have no regard for life at all. And I wanted people to understand just how brutal that they are, and how they can just take a life without even giving it a second thought. And that this is a safety issue, and it is, I believe, a national security issue, having all these criminals in our country. And so that's the main reason why I shared it. It was extremely very painful. I was a mess the rest of the day after speaking.
It was a powerful moment. I think the American people needed to hear the unfiltered truth from you.
Yeah, but she shouldn't have to do this. She shouldn't have to relive this horror. She shouldn't have to continue to tell the story. And the only reason she does is because Democrats are grandstanding on this issue and showing sympathy and concern and righteous indignation over the criminals. Is the guy who got deported that Chris Van Hollen's chasing, is he a murderer? I don't know, but I know he's a criminal. Multiple crimes now have been listed. And Patty Moran, this mother, this Marylander, still has not heard from Chris Van Hollen. A little bit more from this morning.
I know the senator had to see it. So did he reach out after?
No. I've heard no response from any Democrats. I've received some threatening phone calls, but I've received no response from anybody. They're ignoring it. It's kind of like, a little toddler. If I don't look at you, you can't see me. Or if I don't look at that, I didn't do that, kind of thing. They're ignoring it.
I know.
Yeah, I think to call them toddlers is giving them a little bit too much credit, because a toddler has a yet to be developed brain. They don't quite understand these things. And as evil and as horrible as these people are, they aren't dumb. They have developed brains. They're just using it for bad instead of good. More from Ms. Moore. And we're going to do what the broadcast networks and the other cable networks won't do. We want to share this story with you so you see the stakes here.
Has the senator, leadership of the Democratic Party, anyone reached out to you as they have been covering what's going on with this other illegal MS-13 member?
No, they haven't. They never reached out to me, even when after Kayla was murdered and we found out that it was a 16-year-old known MS-13 gang member. The Democratic Party has never looked at her pictures. When I testified in Congress, they never looked at her photos or said her name, and they always say the same thing. Oh, the Republicans are using you as a political stunt, or I'm sorry for your condolences. That's all they had to offer. They did not offer any solutions on the ongoing problem.
Yeah, it is funny. Funny not in a ha-ha way, funny in a despicable way. Yesterday, after this scene at the White House, after Patty Moran, it was incredibly compelling, and I know you've already seen it. After she delivered her remarks, Democrats, elected officials, political pundits, people who go on television and talk about politics, They could have easily taken to their social media accounts, or while they were on television talking about this story, they could have taken a moment or two and said, listen, gotta say what happened here is horrible, and it's pretty bad that the Senator Van Hollen has not reached out and done anything. The fact that they feel abandoned by their leadership in Maryland, and it appears that all they're getting is support for the criminals instead of for the victims, that's an awful look. It's so easy to do that. It would have cost them nothing. Any Democrat elected official could have said something for Patty Moran yesterday, anything. It's a layup. It's a gimme. It costs them nothing to do, and yet they still wouldn't do it. They still wouldn't do it because it's too important for them to not show any daylight at all, to not give anything on this topic that they are so sure they're right about. And are they right about it? I mean, you heard it a lot from a lot of the analysis that we've been showing you. Well, I think the American people, they draw a line on this. They draw a line on abducting people and throwing them out. They draw a line in just deporting people willy-nilly. They draw, I think the American people, I think they all think they know what the American people believe about this issue. It's like they've been in a coma, not just since the last election, but for the last 10 years. What do the American people think about this? CNN asked, actually. Let's remind ourselves what the American people think about this issue. While Chris Van Hollen and every Democrat, every major player who wants to be president, grandstands on behalf of the guy who's been deported and was in the country illegally, what do the American people think about it?
Deport all undocumented immigrants. Voters favoring the government trying to deport all 11 million of them. Back in 2016, just 38% of voters wanted the government to try to deport all 11 million undocumented immigrants. Compared to where we are in 2025, 56%, the majority. The American people have come a long way on this issue, much closer to Donald Trump. And I think that's a big part of the reason why Americans are increasingly saying the country is on the right track when it comes to immigration policy, and why Donald Trump's net approval rating on that issue is in the positive.
Now, do you think that this story, as it's been playing out in the media about this guy who was in the country illegally since 2012, was supposed to be deported in 2019, he's finally now been deported. We find out that he's had multiple run-ins with the law, including beating his own wife. And now he's back in his home country, and every Democrat is stopping everything, dropping everything to go down to a foreign country to try to rescue him and bring him home. As you see that play out, and then you see Rachel Morin's mother tell her story in tears, re-traumatized over what happened to her daughter at the hands of just such an illegal immigrant. Do you think those numbers end up hurting Donald Trump? Do you think the American people see this story play out and suddenly think, oh yeah, I've changed my mind, I'm with Elizabeth Warren? Apparently that's what the Democrats think. I think you and I, we know better.